sinners and saints. Dust off those horns and halos. It's time for Alan After Dark.
Sinners and saints. Remember the old primetime soap operas? Well, even the soap operas today, primetime, daytime. Remember how they used to always have these very elaborate parties, and it was always the catalyst for drama. You'd have the interaction of characters. There would be the cattiness, the bitchiness, the gossip, throwing shade. And it seems like in the gay community, well, probably every community, I don't think it's just limited to us, but there seems like at parties, the Bear Night previously, there was plenty of cattiness and bitchiness. But what do you expect from a bunch of old hairy queens acting like divas, hoping to be the belle of the ball, wanting everybody to look at them when it's obvious they were looking at me? But seriously, the Bears can be some of the most masculine, macho men you'll come across. I mean, sweaty, hairy, bearded, bad breath. You know, the kind that wear baseball caps and scratch their behinds after every beer. Like your average guy.
Yee-haw!
By the way, if you didn't notice, the reference to guys wearing baseball caps and scratching their behinds after every beer, that comes from the Golden Girls. So, 2 snaps up to Beatrice Arthur and the character of Dorothy for uttering those famous words. If I had been the originator of those words, it would have been something like, we'll wear leather harnesses and finger our asses after every cocktail.
What?
Oh my God.
Oh, now you're suddenly offended? Well, you weren't expecting National Public Radio, now were you? This is Alan After Dark. You're not going to get the ultimate quality level of podcasting as you would with James O'Brien or Howard Stern or any of those fuckers. I don't know who else, you know. But if you really wanted that quality, you would be listening to NPR. You wouldn't be listening to AAD, now would you? Can I get an amen up in here? Thank you. Well, sinners and saints, we've come to that time. I have to make a confession. I know you're all on pins and needles. What's Alan going to confess right here? What is he angling toward in this discussion? Well, here we go. While I do attend bear nights down at the club, I don't consider myself a bear. Some of you are probably shocked. Others are just like, whatever. What I'm getting at here with this is that I want to discuss labels and their importance. While I do relate to the bears, and I guess on a basic description, I do look like a bear, right? With facial hair, I did lose my weight, so I'm not meeting that goal. I don't wear flannel very much. I do like wearing leather, but that could be a different group too, right? How important is a label? Now, I know that Gen Z is really about labels. A lot of people like to describe themselves in different ways. Pansexual, demi-romantic, and what's it called? Ace? I don't know all the names that people use for labels. And I am the most open-minded person, I hope, around. And I can understand why you would want a word, a label that clearly defines who you are. I just hope that people don't judge us older folks who tend not to really want or need to have a label. I think it's cool. I like relating to the bears. I can relate to otters and pansexual and bisexual and heterosexual, straight, gay, queer, anything you want to be called. But I hope that you're not a person who gets angry at someone who doesn't know what your label is and doesn't know what it means. I see posts on social media sometimes of people who have expressed who they are with their label. And I've also seen them be very militant with their label, insisting that people need to educate themselves more on their label. And I'm like, well, I agree on educating yourselves, but I don't think it's such a crime for someone not to know. And if that person is genuinely trying to understand and is asking you questions, there's nothing wrong with having a little patience with someone trying to learn, trying to understand. And for me, though, it's like, why do I give a rat's ass about that specific person understanding or not? It would be the people around me that I'm close with. I just want them to understand how I feel. I don't necessarily need to have the label. Let's say we're going out to dinner and I'm maybe approaching the table. I don't want people to say, oh, there's gay Alan. Oh, there's pansexual Alan. No, there's Alan. They know who I am. I don't know that I have to have a specific label for everyone to use to describe me. I just don't want to be attacked by people if I don't know what their label is. Like, for example, I am old school. I was taught to say yes, sir, and yes, ma'am. If that's embedded in you, you can try your best to change that, but that's how I was raised. And it's second nature for me to say those things, to say sir or ma'am. And of course, the label that I use, sir or ma'am, is based on my visual observation of someone. And I know that there are people who dress however they want to dress. But don't get mad at me if I accidentally misidentify you as sir if you want to be referred to as ma'am, or as neither. If you wish to correct me, thank you so much for correcting me and stating who you are. But please do not jump down my throat and go ballistic because someone used to the paradigms of our society, raised in those paradigms, may not be able to quickly adjust, even though they're trying. I guess I'm being a little bit preachy tonight, even though I don't mean to be. I just hope that those who like their labels and those who don't need labels can live together in peace and harmony. But I think it's the human condition to want conflict. How else do we explain the talk shows like Jerry Springer, like Ricky Lake, and Geraldo, and Maury Povich, and all those shows that seem to thrive on animosity, on controversy, on anger toward each other? We have a lot more bigger fights, I believe, that we're facing than to fight with each other over labels. You may disagree with me, and that is absolutely your right. I just hope that we don't cross some lines here that can be even more divisive than the community seems to be already. I really got to wonder, though, does the person make the label, or is the label making the person? I was talking with a friend about astrology. everybody seems to know their astrological sign: Gemini, Virgo, Libra, Sagittarius, Leo, whatever. And I always have wondered, they always say, well, your behavior is like this sign, like you've got the temper of someone that's a Leo or a Virgo, whatever. But are we making ourselves that way because of the way that sign is being defined? So you read that a Leo is temperamental or very emotional, dresses a certain way, all those things, and you do those things just to fit that description. Is it the same way with all labels? Like you decide you want to be a bear, so you grow facial hair, you gain weight maybe, even though I don't believe you have to gain weight to just be a bear. But is that a product of humans as well? That we see a label that intrigues us and we try to become the label as it's defined, instead of us being who we are and saying, oh, well, this is the label that reflects who I really am. That's what I've been saying about, I guess even on a physical level, we see certain actors or models and we think that is the idea of a beautiful person, and we try to become very similar to that person. We will wear the same kind of clothes they wear. We will try to use, if you use makeup, you might try to use your makeup to reflect and resemble this person that you think is beautiful. I think that's all good, but I wonder if you are really reflecting who you are or what you think people want you to be. We'll call this thinking out loud. So please, I won't say forgive me. I have a right to think however I want to think, but I'm not meaning to offend anybody on this topic. I'll offend you on something else eventually. But I really wanted to talk about this because I think it is important to recognize yourself in your most intimate way. And if a label does define you, that's wonderful. If you don't use labels, that's great too. I guess some things have become so much embedded in our society that they don't come off as labels anymore anyway. Like gay and straight. That's an orientation. It's not really a label. Saying you're gay isn't really labeling yourself, is it? It's just, it is a label. But it resonates in a general way. And maybe that's the idea. Maybe that's why Gen Z and the younger generations are looking at a more specific label. Maybe gay, bisexual, heterosexual, maybe they are too generic now. And that's fine too. I mean, that makes sense to me in a way. And if someone asks me, I just say, yeah, I'm gay. I actually tried to use the label queer, which I probably do fall into that category, but it's up to me to define what queer means as it pertains to me individually, no one else. My label, whatever it would be, if I chose to have one, would only be a reflection of me. So my definition of queer would be for me and for no one else. So then I think when I describe it that way, that makes all the labels that I've heard even more complicated, doesn't it? So two different people could call themselves pansexual and have two totally different meanings, and both would be right unless someone gets angry and says, no, there is a concrete definition of what a pansexual is, and if you don't meet this definition, then you are not pansexual. But then is that fair? Are you saying then that this other person who defines themselves as pansexual, you have the right to tell them they're not because they don't meet your definition of what pansexual is? That'd be pretty fucked up, wouldn't it? It's interesting what comes up when we're talking and we're just thinking out loud and kind of hashing out a topic. I've got myself thinking harder about it right now, too. Interesting, isn't it? So, how do you define yourself? Do you give yourself a label? Do I give myself a label other than just being gay? It matters, I guess. I suppose it depends on how you want to define yourself to other people. I define myself as Alan, as gay, as a writer, a podcaster. Maybe it's how we think about what our obituaries would say. How would you want to be remembered? How would you be labeled? Would you say in your obituary, would it say you're a pansexual person? I don't know. I don't know. I think that's a complicated one, and it would be your right to define yourself however. But I wonder, do we really define ourselves more profoundly based on our sexuality versus all the other aspects of us, all the other dimensions that we have that make us uniquely individual? Yes, being gay is a huge part of my life. It has defined me. It is what has shown me how to love, how to express love and affection and desire toward another person. It affects how I think, how I feel, how I love, how I hate, how I protect myself. And I think that's why it is good for the younger generation if they want to have these labels. It would make it harder for the anti-gay agenda to demonize everything. But now, granted, they demonize labeling. They call it woke, of course. They're targeting, as I've said many times, of the transgender community. It's solely a desperate attempt to create new monsters for their base to be afraid of. And when we broaden those labels, I could see where it makes it harder for them to target groups, but they just bundle everybody up into one again anyway. So that's a fascinating thought as I'm talking to you all and thinking about it right now. Maybe this is my first step in this new journey of understanding and discovery. I definitely need to do more study on the issue. I need to talk to more people. I need to make sure that I understand, but I want them to understand me as well. I don't think that's such a bad thing, right? The lost art of communication. What a novel concept. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Alan After Dark. I hope you've had fun and have been entertained and maybe even provoked into thinking about a subject that we haven't really talked about before. Remember, take life by the balls and be real. We'll see you soon. God, I need a drink. Where is my vodka? Jesus.